Welcome to the Masters of the Universe and DC Comics, a Masterverse of characters and stories panel.
Oh, no, I can't.
I'll just say in advance, you guys are in for a treat. I have seen some glimpses of what you're about to see, and your mind will be blown. I just want to remind folks that videotaping, filming of the panel is not allowed. We have our own videographer, Danielle, who is filming all of the panels. So please, no filming. However, photographs are allowed. If you want to take pictures of the panel, that is totally fine. The other thing I would like to tell you is, with the exception of Power Pass holders, after this panel is over, you must clear the room before the next panel. They will not start the next panel until the room is completely cleared, with the exception of Power Pass holders. Power Pass holders can stay. So, with that in mind, I'd like to go down the row here. If you would, please, starting with Rob, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your history with Masters of the Universe?
My name is Rob David. I am Vice President of Content Creative for Mattel Television. I have been at Mattel for 8 years. I was recruited by Mattel to work on Masters of the Universe, specifically to redevelop it and try to tell a myriad of different, as dynamically good stories as possible across as many different touch points as possible, including comic books. I've had the honor of writing many of the DC comic books, the He-Man Thundercats, the Eternity War, and the Origin of She-Ra storyline that preceded the Eternity War, and now continuing to have the pleasure to work with our amazing partners at DC and these guys here on the next exciting chapter of He-Man.
I want to... my name is Tim Seeley. I'm a comic book writer and artist. I'm a lifelong He-Man fan, and I kind of stumbled into working on the book just because everybody knows I'm that He-Man guy. So I'm writing this book. I did the Masters of the Universe versus Injustice with DC and Mattel, and now we're doing Masters of the Multiverse with artist Dan Fraga.
What's up, guys? My name is Dan Fraga. Some people call me Fraga Boom. I've been drawing comic books since 1992. Started at Image, worked for Marvel. Had the pleasure of working with Mr. David at Mattel for about 5.5 years, creating cartoons, and now I am back. And on the Masters of the Universe, very exciting. As a kid, I played with the toys, and now I get to help shape some stories and visuals, and it's just a pleasure to be working with these guys.
Okay, I'll say that. All right, great. Well, we have some exciting things to look at from what I understand here, so why don't we get the ball rolling here with the
With the announcement.
I'll let you announce it.
Yeah, well, I mean, solicitations kind of beat us to it. But in case you haven't heard, we are doing a big new 6-issue series for He-Man that will debut in November. And it is entitled He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse. And it is, I think, from a fan perspective, it's going to be something that you guys are really going to cherish, because it's every single incarnation of He-Man from the very beginning to as recently as we can make it, crashing together, teaming up to save the universe.
Wonderful. The multiverse, that's interesting. I mean, over the years, we've seen so many iterations of Masters of the Universe, from the original Alcala, Don Bluth mini-comics, to the Filmation cartoon, the 87 movie. There's so many different versions of it. Is this what this is all about here?
It is, because, I mean, as you guys know, I'm presuming you guys have heard of He-Man, but it really is a journey. There really is no one official continuity in canon to Masters, and each of them are really valid and amazing in their own right. I mean, as you guys know, when he first premiered, there was no Prince Adam. He was just the wandering barbarian, and the sorceress was the goddess, and so on and so on. And it evolved over the years and in different incarnations where different talented people contributed something to the mythology, step by step and in different spins. And they're all equally valid and wonderful. And I think just from a storytelling perspective, rather than just trying to pretend that they all coexist and forcing them all to thread them together like a Frankenstein, we should really celebrate each of them in their own right and what they share in common between them. And this is an opportunity to have that original He-Man meet the Filmation era He-Man, meet the Mike Young series He-Man, and other surprises. And some of them I think will be pretty startling. And just celebrate, especially now at this juncture, when we are going to be bringing back Masters of the Universe in a tremendously powerful way. To make it, Mattel is very, very dedicated to actually raising the tent, the big tent, and to make Masters as big as it's ever been, as big as it was in the 80s, and even bigger. So this is a moment for us to kick that off with a giant celebration of the entire franchise, which I think this series does.
Wonderful. Do we have any images of?
We do. Ooh. We have the first 3 pages of the comic. Well, actually, the cover. I should start with the cover first. That's our issue 1, and there you have it. That's the issue 1 cover that really gets to the heart of the matter. And you can, if you can identify each and every incarnation of He-Man across the shattered glass, you get. I don't know what you get, but we'll find it. We'll get you a high five. Get a high five. It's really, really wonderful. And then now I want to go on to this, which is our variant cover, which was drawn, illustrated by our very own Fraga Boom. You want to talk about
watching the cartoon as a kid, the Skeletor's laughter, right? It just sticks with you. And I had dreams of cackling, joyfully cackling as I drew several layouts, and I had my fingers crossed on a couple of them, and this was high on the list, so when they picked it, I cackled like Skeletor. If you guys want to see the original, I have it at my table. You can see the original drawing. I actually drew it on a piece of photocopy paper about this big. So you can take a look. It was colored by the incomparable Matt Yackey, and Matt Yackey, he's in Georgia right now enjoying the humidity. But he did such a fantastic job, and I'm hoping you guys enjoy it as much as I did drawing it.
And that's the design for that figure is the Sideshow Collectibles version, I believe, is what the one you did there.
I kind of multiversed them a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to use everything available, so I think, and you'll see in the comic that does totally pay off with us trying to use every version that's been created.
Wow. Now, there's going to be, as I understand it, a poster available?
There is.
Oh my goodness.
This poster right here is going to be available to everybody here in this room, and you can pick up your own copy of it at Dan and Tim's booth.
We'll sign it for you too. I mean, he's got a busted hand, but he's pretty
I'll figure
good.
it out.
All right. Do you guys have a favorite version of Skeletor out of the whole multiverse of Skeletor? Starting with kind of Dan and working our way down?
I love the Filmation Skeletor.
Uh-huh.
That's the one that I was introduced to as a kid. Again, it's that cackle and that laughter, and like I'm even a fan of all the Skeletor memes, and they kind of revolve around that version. He is probably the character that I can draw the most easily in all versions. I have an Instagram where I try to do a daily drawing. In the month of July, I teased by not telling anybody anything, but I just drew 30 days of skulls. So I just enjoy drawing him. But I think my favorite guy to draw in the whole thing is our bad guy.
Okay.
But we'll tease him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not saying who it is.
Ooh, okay.
I think, and I want to be like, oh man, I like the serious version of Skeletor where he's really threatening, the all-color version, the original. But like, you're right. animated filmation, Skeletor is such a special creation because he still survives. Like everyone around the world, if they've even never heard of He-Man or the cartoon or the toys, they still know who Skeletor is because he's just this amazing, weird. He's not really evil. He's just kind of a jerk, you know. And like, it's a big muscular body with a yellow skull head floating there, and he calls people boobs. Like it's just it is a perfect human creation. It's like a platonic ideal.
My favorite Skeletor is those money market commercials that just came out. No, I'm kidding. No, he was just so clearly and perfectly defined right from the get-go. I mean, I still have a soft spot for him just being this demon from another dimension with one half of the power sword. But then the filmation took it to another whole other level with the voice, as you guys mentioned, is just so clean and clear, and just his unrelenting desire to get into that castle that can never be satisfied. He will always go for it, and I think it has something to do with the fact that, judging by the look of his face and the skull facade of the castle, it really is his castle if you think about it. Yeah. And he's probably like, "Come on, look at me!" But he's just so rich, and as you guys said, he is unrepentant. You know, I always like contrast him with She-Ra and Adora, who, you know, was under the tutelage of Hordak, but was an unwilling participant, you know, in that. But Skeletor chose it. He wants it, and he is not somebody who really wants to be redeemed. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a softer side, or you don't sympathize with him, and he doesn't have his reasons. But he is unrepentantly a jerk, and that's what makes him so wonderful.
Great. So let's talk about story for this. I know you have some slides here, and maybe Tim can talk about the setup for the story and maybe tease a few things here.
Well, I mean, the first issue we open up right away in the middle of some action where Skeletor is trying to get into Castle Grayskull, and he's got some kind of crazy doomsday weapon. It's a giant floating burning sun shaped like a skull, of course, and he's trying to get Castle Grayskull. So we start off in media res in the middle of a Masters of the Universe adventure that you kind of feel familiar, and then things take a twist because you start to realize the designs are different, the characters look a little different. And this is kind of how we introduce you to this notion that Rob set up really well in the DC series, which is there's a multiverse of Masters of the Universe. Eternia is the center of all of the universes. So we really play with that idea. That the original idea for Eternia was that at the center of the universe lay this magical world. It was the first world, and so we really play with that old mythology and add some of the new stuff. But you get the setup right away with a big Skeletor plot.
Page 2?
Sure. Yeah, and you see Adam with the sorceress, and Skeletor's calling him out like usual. We went a little more like grimdark edgelord with it because it's the new design. It's so serious, you guys. It's so serious. But we had a lot of fun with it. It's the updated version of Masters of the Universe via these new sideshow collectible designs. And Dan put lots of little pretty lines on there.
Yeah, I'd say of the stuff I've drawn so far, those sideshow designs are gorgeous and intricate, but they definitely weren't designed to be drawn over and over. A lot of links and chains and little birds and details and things.
Wait, there's little birds all over?
Yeah, on his belt buckle, there's like a little bird, and on his boots, when he turns into He-Man, it's a bird, and Skeletor has these little bats, this chain link that's made out of these little bats.
Oh man, see?
Yeah.
Well, this is why we clearly need to get some of those sent to us because we need the research. So
clearly,
if you're listening, Sideshow, hook a guy up.
There he is, having the power.
You guys want to tease who He-Man's looking at the bottom right-hand corner? We don't have the page here, but I think it's mentioned in the.
It's mentioned in the article.
Well, so this first sequence sets you up with the notion. You see this He-Man scene. He-Man rushes out to fight Skeletor, and he gets there, and Skeletor is dead. Somebody stabbed him with his own havoc staff right in the heart. And then we reveal our bad guy for this series was actually anti-Eternia He-Man, which is one of the coolest, weirdest concepts to come out of the extended Masters of the Universe lore, because it was like in a German audio play, I believe, And I think you might have been the person to discover those things and bring them back to the forefront, right? Because
Well, they were all in the character guide. Sebastian Vogel is a German fan from PlanetEternia.de, and he actually wrote all the entries for the German audio plays in the character guide that we did with Dark Horse. So
Yeah.
all that information's in there. Yeah.
so I thought that was the coolest looking toy. It's just He-Man spray painted black with red eyes and red hair. And I'm a sucker for like a color variation, like Faker. That's my favorite toy. But Ed and He-Man might be even just slightly cooler than Faker.
He's the best.
He's pretty cool. So that's why we thought, and we wanted to make this story, this flips it a little bit on the head, because then it becomes a story of the worst thing in the universe is now a He-Man. And so they have to come up with a solution to fight. If the worst thing in the multiverse is a He-Man, what do you have to get to fight it? That's our little pitch for this series. ...
Yeah. And it really is, in the end of the day, which is a great job that you guys are doing, is it's really a celebration and an exploration of what does it mean to be He-Man. And you're going to see that played out by all the different variations of He-Man, but then the character that they recruit, the surprising character they recruit to help join their ranks, for that character to kind of learn what it means to be He-Man as well is a real treat.
I'm enjoying the character arc, the sort of destiny fulfillment, and sort of the idea of fates have their plan.
Yes, they do.
Which is a part of the Masters of the Universe lore going back to way in the beginning, back to the mini comics. It's such a staple of a fantasy story is prophecy and the hero returned and all that sort of stuff. So we wanted to put that down on a new track in this story.
That leads me to this question. What do you guys feel makes Masters of the Universe such a beloved property, even all these years later? Like, there's such passion for it. What is it that you think is sort of essential to capture in a Masters of the Universe story?
Well, I think it's two things. The second one is more important than the first, but the first one is that it's this crazy stew cocktail of all kinds of things that you love and enjoyed. I mean, there are no lawyers here, right? So we can convince. But I mean, you get Conan, you get Star Wars, you get John Carter, you get Lord of the Rings, you get anything you loved. People were throwing it in. You like fantasy, you like sci-fi. Let's just put sci-fi. I mean, and then just stir it up into this amazing, really weird blend that you'd never seen before. And there's things that are out now which I think are clearly the children of Masters, like things like Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot and Rocket. I mean, we've got Mossman and Stinkor. I mean, there are things that are just part of these things that, one thing leads to the other. But the second thing, which I think is the most important thing, is the theme of I have the power. And this idea that, it's represented in Adam and He-Man, where, Adam, you wouldn't know it to look at him, but there's something inside him, something truly strong and special, that if it's unlocked, and I think the sword has always represented a key, not just to Grayskull, but to the actual power within Adam. And if you can unlock that part of yourself and master it and express it, you can do tremendous things. And it's not just Adam, but it's everybody, all of his friends. There's something special. Even the bad guys, like Stinkor, smells so bad. He smells worse than anybody else. And then he could have let that just keep him in bed all day, depressed for his entire life. But he decided, I can do something with this, right? And turn it into my greatest strength. And I think that is the true theme of the whole property. And I think that's why it speaks to everybody in this room and everybody who's ever loved it and touched it. And that's what it is. It's not just I have the power, it's we have the power.
That's really good. I always thought something that really worked with, give him I always thought something that really works with it too is how flexible Masters of the Universe is, because it's designed at the base to be a thing that sells toys. And so you go to the toy store and you see a guy and he's cool, and the description may say evil warrior or something, but when you take it home and you're a kid, he's whatever, or she is whatever you want them to be.
Yeah.
You establish the sort of, Masters of the Universe gave you these guidelines of a world and an idea, but it was really about your imagination. And I think that's why that affected all of us today. I wouldn't be a comic book writer if not for Masters of the Universe. because of the imagination that it sort of let me unleash. And I think, like, as the years have gone by, yes, there's lots of established lore and there's lots of story that you can go into. But the cool part of it is it's still really about how flexible and how wide open this world is and how these characters can be whatever you want. Like, I know when we were kids, like, my brother determined, that Trapjaw was a good guy because he looks too cool to be a bad guy. So yes, you can do that. And all that matters is that you play and have an imaginary world that you can escape to when you're a kid.
Yeah, I would piggyback on both of what you guys had said and say that there's sort of an appeasement to the imagination of kids in a way that a lot of other franchises don't have. You have magic and wizardry, you have monsters, you have guns, you have mech, you have otherworldly creatures, you have things, technology that flies, you have prehistoric type stuff. So the child is the master of the universe at a certain point because it's all there for you. And for me as a kid, it was all there. It was like a salad bar of awesome.
Salad bar, boss.
Yeah, I love it.
Now, is this tied into the DC Injustice Masters of the Universe and Thundercats, or is it its own thing?
It's its own thing, but it's its own thing in the way that it would acknowledge those existed. Because,
okay.
Because the whole point of the series is that every incarnation of MOTU, and I would even argue all the times you played out stories with your action figures when you were a kid, those are valid universes too. I mean, I think in many ways. So it's all part of the same multiverse.
I see.
And I think it's organic to Masters. You said it, with Eternia being the center of the universe and the nexus of all these different dimensions, and also Castle Grayskull itself has always been set up as a castle that its rooms have rooms, and those rooms can lead to any myriad of different dimensions and realities. One of them could be the He-Man Thundercats reality, another one could be anywhere you want to go.
Right, because the nexus of all realities that was established in those comics, which was a really cool idea. Now, Rob, you came up with the persona of Despara for She-Ra a while back, because we all kind of wondered, when she was the Force captain in the Horde, she must have did some pretty terrible stuff. So you kind of realized that and showed us exactly what was going on there. So what do you guys think of She-Ra? Is that part of this as well, or is that its own separate?
Well, She-Ra won't be appearing in this series, but She-Ra is definitely part of the story of Masters.
Okay.
Absolutely, and as far as I'm concerned, it's really you can't really separate them, and if you do, you can't do it for too long.
Okay.
They are twins, after all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now you have some material from the next issue.
Well, I would love to show something. I don't know if I can.
You can't?
Is
Can
Michael
we?
McAllister? Are you here? This is the editor. There he is. This is the editor from DC Comics right there. Can I show the cover to the next issue, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Wait a minute. What?
Is that Masters of the Universe movie 1987, He-Man fighting Krita? And you see who's in the background in the lower right-hand corner, too. With that green
New
sword.
adventures. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that
Tell
is
you.
awesome.
They are all getting together for a big party.
And when Michael asked me, like, who should I put on this cover, the first thing I said was, Optic, dude. You gotta put Optic.
That is really amazing. So this is going to be a 6-issue miniseries. When is it starting?
In November.
In November. Wonderful.
November 20th.
Aha.
If you want to get really specific.
Now we know also that there is a new film in development. Now, is that tied into this at all, or is that also its own?
No, the new film won't be. It goes all the way up, really, to anything you've seen as of now.
Up until this point.
Right, but anything coming, won't be in this one.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask you if we're going to see any, we have a lot of familiar faces. I was about to ask if we're going to see any obscure characters, but it looks like we might have some interesting cameos here.
Oh, they're going to be really interesting cameos. That's the beauty, bringing on someone like Tim and Dan. I can just go to sleep at night knowing that the most obscure, ridiculously obscure characters will find their way in, because these guys just know the material backwards and forwards. Do you want to tease any?
Oh man, I mean, so I don't want to ruin too much, but we go through different worlds of Master Universe. So obviously, issue 2 is New Adventures. So I made sure. I mean, Master Cerebrian is in there, and Kaz, and every mutant. Hoov is in this story. But like to me, the goal was, we have to tell a very powerful emotional story arc, and then we will do that with the main characters, and that will be very important. But everyone else can just show up and be cool. They don't have to have a major story. They can just be awesome. So issue 2 has everything I could get in from New Adventures. Issue 3, we're gonna get into. I don't want to ruin it for you. But yes, everything you love will be in there. In fact, I wrote into it, and I'm not sure it'll be able to work out, but known as Disco Skeletor, I wrote him into the script.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
We also have Gelehrter,
Oh, yes.
he's just a treat to draw.
And also a character I can write dialogue for him, because I can hear Billy Barty in my head. I can just hear it just comes right out as Billy Barty voice. It's weird.
A question in terms of fan feedback. Some creators look at fan feedback and what they're saying on message boards and Facebook like that, and some creators absolutely refuse or don't want to do that because they don't want it to affect what they're doing. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you look at fan feedback to these material? Or?
Yeah, I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again in about 40 minutes. But honestly, when I started at Mattel, they gave me every single Bible to every incarnation of MOTU that had come out, and they told me to read it all and either put it aside or dive into it, whatever you wanted to do. And soon after going online and finding things like He-Man.org and other sites, I realized that there was another Bible that was just as important, if not more important, than any of the other Bibles, and that was you guys and all of the conversations that you guys have and all of the discussions and the way you know the characters and the themes, and that was just tremendously valuable to me. And I felt like, I was a fan as well, but just it's really just the community and the dialogue that you guys have. And conventions like this, that's when you really start to understand the emotional engine behind the whole thing and why it actually matters and why it's resonant. So we are always listening, and I definitely am. And without it, I feel like I'd be flying blind, frankly.
I try to do the thing. I don't feel like a lot of things that I work on, I have to go do research, and Masters of the Universe is the only thing I don't have to do any research of. Because I've been here, this is my 8th year, I think, at PowerCon. I've come as just a guy to hang out, not to sell anything. But I also feel like my job is not to necessarily do what the fans ask for, is the thing they didn't know to ask for.
That's that Stan Lee quote.
Yeah, Stan Lee quote, right? So part of that is I know what everybody likes because I've sat in a bar with all of you and had drinks. But I also have to be I've got an idea that you don't know you wanted.
For me, I love fans. I try my best to communicate with them. With this project, specifically, to steal what Rob had said, going to sleep at night feeling safe and sound with this project. These gentlemen right here are huge fans and mega fans, and I usually feel very justified in any decision I make because they vet it as fans. So I'm working with some super fans. So
You can say nerds. That's cool. You can say it.
Yeah, well.
All right. Before we go over to the Q&A, I have a question here I was wondering about. We see some new adventure stuff here. What do you guys think of the Pre-Eternia stuff, like Powers of Grayskull, Hero, Eldor, all that stuff? Is that something that's of interest to you, or that we may see? I know you can't spoil anything, but talk about your thoughts on Pre-Eternia.
So I was a kid collecting Masters of the Universe stuff. I bought the last line of figures when everyone else had still abandoned it, and got those comics and was like, who's the hero? And I at 10 years old, I had to wait, 15 years to find out or whatever. No, more than that. I think it was almost 20 by the time we got around to it. So I was always in on that stuff. So yeah, of course, if we can put that in there, we're gonna do it. Obviously, the mythology is part of this. We use the cosmic key and the origin of the sword and all that sort of stuff is part of this story. Not so much that it's too much continuity to drag it down, but it's all part of the thing. And obviously, if you can get dinosaurs into anything, you put dinosaurs in there.
I get to draw dinosaurs?
Maybe.
Yeah, I saw you put Hero in the Injustice
excited.
story in a really cool way. So yeah, I was kind of wondering what you thought about Hero.
I mean, Apocalypse or Darkseid wanted to get Hero's soul. That's a pretty It's as nerd, that's as Kirby as I can get on something.
I like Pre-Eternia and King Grayskull, and in some ways, just on the very basic level, is it gives the impression of texture and dimension to the story and the world in present day of He-Man. There's a Tolkien quote that I always go to. And he was mentioning distant mountains. He'd always reference distant mountains in the distance wherever during the tales, and fans would write at him and say, Professor Tolkien, when are we going to go to those distant mountains? And he said, well, I might go there, but if I go there, I'll have to create more distant mountains to constantly make it feel like there's more to the universe in every direction you can go. I love the hero story is fantastic. We've done stories in the comics where we've gotten into it, but I also just love it just in terms of just it completely just making it feel like there's so much history to this one planet.
Awesome. Before we go to the Q&A, do you guys have any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave us with?
You're a master of words, Dan.
I write with pictures. I'm just delighted that I get to be part of this. I haven't drawn a comic book in 17 years, so I feel like the character in Sopranos where they go, I'm trying to leave, but keep pulling me back. So between Rob and Melanie, my coworkers, just feeling blessed to be back, blessed to be part of the canon of Masters of the Universe, and very excited.
And for me, I just think, so Masters of the Universe fans tend to be huge fans of the toys, and there's not as much sort of I know you guys love the comics, but you're not as loud about it as G.I. Joe fans or Transformers fans. So if you like the comics, tell everybody, tell DC, tell your retailer, because we want to be able to do more He-Man comics for you. So spread the word.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and any chance we get to tell the story of MOTU, and as I said before, the big takeaway I want to leave you with is we are bringing Masters back. I mean, Danielle, you mentioned it. There's the Sony movie. There's a lot of things being planned that will unlock the full power, if I dare say it, of this property. And for me, the whole reason to do this particular story, like I said, is to just kick off the party with a giant celebration of everything that we have done with this brand in the last 35 years as we celebrate the next 35 years, which begins right here, right now.
Yeah. And yeah. And it's so appropriate. Masters of the Universe in its first comic book incarnation started at DC Comics. The crossover with Superman, DC Presents number 47.
Prince Adam.
And Prince Adam with the blue vest, yeah. And now we're back full circle with DC Comics, and I think we're all very grateful
I just want to give a shout because DC has been wonderful partners in this. Michael and I think we're legally married at this point. And it's really just been a tremendous partnership, and I think it's a great opportunity to go deep into the characters and to experiment, and they've always delivered, and we just look forward to more years to come.
Wonderful. All right, guys. Well, I have some good news. I was informed that you do not need to clear the panel room, and you can stick here for the next panel. So. Now, we'll open it up to Q&A. If you have a question, please come up to the microphone right here in the center of the room and ask your questions.
Hi. Really quick, you said that you guys were getting ready to restart, reboot, and all that. I was wondering, is there plans for a monthly Masters of the Universe comic book? I know this is a limited series, I'm looking forward to it, but I would love a monthly series.
You guys want a monthly series? Well, we can't reveal too much, but I think it goes without saying that, like, you know, if this is the franchise is back and bigger than ever, we're going to have as much robust storytelling across the board as we can manage.
I just feel like, it needs to be retold.
Yeah.
For the next generation, who He-Man is, who these characters are. You know, the story is so rich. It needs to be told, especially in comic book form. I think that's the best medium. So good job, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
We got your back.
Hey guys, thanks for everything you do. You were talking about with continuity and things like that, which I've really loved about the new comic books. And DC has been killing it with the animated features with Batman and the Flashpoint paradox and things like that. Has there been any consideration of maybe doing an animated feature about the Eternity War? And because that comic book was just so fantastic.
Thanks.
And I think an animated feature by DC would just be absolutely brilliant.
That would be cool. Yeah, I mean, definitely animation and telling stories in lots of different mediums is definitely on the radar for us. But again, I can't get into specifics about what it would be, but for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, so as soon as I heard Masters of the Multiverse, I immediately went back to another DC property of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then you bring up anti-Eternia He-Man and anti-Monitor similarities. Was that intentional? And if it was, are you drawing a lot of like influence from the Infinite Crisis?
I mean, that series, which is from the 80s, is a textbook of how to do a giant crossover. So I don't think we didn't purposely go like, oh, anti-Monitor, anti-Eternia. That wasn't intentional. It's probably just in the head from how, but that is definitely a great template of how to do this. And I feel like if I don't have a scene at some point with like every He-Man that has ever existed rushing to fight somebody, I will have failed. So yes, we're definitely like, I'm gonna make you work, Dan. You gotta be George Perez for me, just for a couple days.
I feel like there's got to be a cover with He-Man holding Tila in his arms, like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your marvelous work throughout the years. We are fans of the original Filmation He-Man. What I really enjoyed as a parent, and I used to watch this with my son. I didn't care. I'll watch cartoons till I die. But what I really enjoy, I wish to holy God you guys could come back with the Saturday morning cartoons. A new generation really needs to be exposed to this. And what I really liked about the original Filmation series is that there was always a message at the end, you know, like honesty, courage, that kind of thing. And I think we need to see more of that because there's a lot of trash out there, and I'm really disappointed with a lot of the animation that's thrown at kids. And I think He-Man and the whole roster of characters, they always showed something positive at the end. And if you guys could bring animation back, even if you brought it back on Netflix, we'd be over the moon with that. And I think a new generation needs to be exposed to the better parts of ethics and courage and so forth that was in the original Filmation production.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the values that those characters demonstrated and embodied are part of the core DNA of the whole thing. I mean, I think Adam is a spectacular character. Just, you know, the fact that he transforms into He-Man is one thing. The fact that he transforms back into Adam is really what makes him special. I mean, that ability to put the weapon away when the fight is over and put the power back is such a special quality to him. And I think the whole thing rests on that. You contrast it to Skeletor, who would never put the power back. Just everywhere you look, there are values that are worked into the narrative and the characters that make it so special. So I think without those values at the core, what's the point of bringing this back?
All right. Yeah, I hope to see you guys back on Saturday morning. I can hardly wait. Saturday morning and Netflix.
Saturday morning is a little bit tough. We might need a time machine for that one.
Yeah.
But we always say too, if you want cartoons, all this stuff, also support comics. That's the building base of how we get up there.
Yep.
So start with comics, and then we'll get up there.
You know what, too? I have a hard time. I mean, I do artwork on my own. I have to make my own t-shirts because I have a real hard time finding Master Universe t-shirts outside this thing. I'm like, who? You know, you
Or
really...
go right out onto the convention floor. There are tons of them.
They have tons of them. Yeah.
All right,
So,
we
yeah.
have another question right behind you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the great work, the great artwork you're showing us. My question is, are these comics going to be connected to the mini comics that are coming out with the new Mattel line?
No, not directly. But again, the benefit of doing something like a Masterverse is that, sure, in many ways it is connected because they are all connected, but they won't directly link to each other.
Oh,
And maybe another question I have is, are we going to get to do Macho Man, He-Man, and... I feel like, yes. Yeah, I feel he's got to show up. Ooh, yeah, give me the power, whatever.
That would be awesome.
okay. Thanks, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for our panelists? Now's your chance. Any other questions? All righty. Well, you have a question.
yeah.
Come on down.
The comic looks great, and I'm really looking forward to it. But Rob, do you control what the current Netflix She-Ra cartoon can and can't do? As far as characters they can use, references they can make, or are they on their own outside your jurisdiction?
No, I mean, no. Well, there are certain parameters in what they can and cannot use, but they're not. It's not me just being capricious and be like, today, no mention of. But there are certain kind of things that are off limits, or it's a total partnership between the two of us. DreamWorks is outstanding. I think the She-Ra show that they developed, the Noelle, is phenomenal. I think it's terrific. Do you guys agree?
I have four girls, 4 to 17. They love it.
Yeah, it's really a tremendously awesome show. So, yeah, I love it.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
So does Money Market Skeletor show up in the multiverse? And if not, can we get a mini-series about Money Market Skeletor?
Yeah, absolutely, positively. Please print that. No, I
So I just wanted to speak to the younger generation watching the new Masters of the Universe. This is my daughter Diane, and we share a love of She-Ra. I used to watch it as a kid, Saturday morning cartoons. I loved it. And when it came on Netflix, I said, "Oh my gosh, they remade She-Ra. You have to watch this." And she just adores it. So I just wanted to thank you guys for bringing that back out.
Yay! Great.
Who's your favorite? She-Ra.
All right, good choice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's Molar.
Molar, Eternian dentist. I know just how to take out anti-Eternia He-Man. We'll get him a root canal.
Just so you know, he is a dentist in real life, too.
Yeah, and he just spoiled issue 6. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Plus, I'm never getting dental work from that guy.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? All right, well, I'd like to thank our panelists very much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And please be sure to visit Tim and Dan over at their tables and
Yes.
chat with them.
And get your poster. Please get your
Yes.
poster.
Yes,
If you
so
guys
much.
look on the map, Tim is at 306 and I'm at 307. We're sitting right next to each other.
All weekend.
Wonderful.
All week.
All right, folks, thank you so much, and stay tuned for our next panel.
Oh, that's awesome.